France in the 1990s was a peculiar place for car makers. On one hand, you had the Peugeot 106 Rallye, a featherweight hot hatch that felt like a terrier wired to a firecracker. On the other, Citroën was building spaceships disguised as saloons, with the XM redefining what suspension could do and the Xantia Activa clinging to corners like Velcro. Renault, meanwhile, had carved itself into motorsport history. Its Formula 1 engines were dominating grids, its rally cars were still terrifying small villages, and its road cars were a mix of brilliant economy runabouts and oddball luxuries. But amid all of that came something almost nobody remembers: a twin-turbocharged, all-wheel drive executive car that could, in theory, embarrass your boss's BMW. That car was the Renault Safrane BiTurbo. Now, let's be honest, the normal Safrane, launched in 1992, was not the sort of thing that stirred the soul. It was Renault's attempt at an executive hatchback. Yes, hatchback, that would take on the German titans like the BMW 5 Series and the Mercedes E-Class. It was smooth, it was comfortable, and it was about as French as a croissant. But it wasn't exciting. Its biggest claim to fame was that it was roomy, well-equipped, and had a luxury-leaning V6 option to keep up appearances. Good, certainly, but memorable, not really. But here's the thing, Renault in the mid-90s wasn't satisfied with good. They were in the business of showing off. The Clio Williams had already given the hot hatch crown a distinctly French flavor, and the Alpine A610 proved Renault could still build proper sports cars when they wanted to. So somebody in a boardroom decided the sensible, grown-up Safrane should be given the kind of makeover you'd expect from a Formula 1-inspired lunatic asylum. Enter the Safrane BiTurbo. You see, in 1994, Renault took its 3-litre PRV V6, the same engine you'd find in the Alpine, and handed it over to Harge and Irmscher. Harge, known for squeezing more grunt from BMWs, and Irmscher, Opel's resident lunatics, were tasked with turning this mild-mannered V6 into something monstrous. Their solution was straightforward: strap on a pair of KKK turbochargers, crank up the boost, and give France its first proper executive rocket. And the numbers were impressive, for the time at least. Power climbed to 258 horsepower, torque to 268 pound-feet, and the mid-range surge arrived from as low as 2,500 RPM. This meant that, unlike the high-revving Germans, the Renault could surge forward from motorway speeds with the kind of force normally reserved for freight trains. 0 to 60 took 7.2 seconds, which isn't earth-shattering today, but in the early 90s, this was more than decent. Of course, sending that power only to the front wheels would have resulted in a tire-melting fiasco. So Renault dusted off its Quadra all-wheel drive system from the 21 Turbo. This gave the BiTurbo proper traction, and coupled with a standard 5-speed manual gearbox, it meant that the car demanded real driver involvement. Automatic buyers were left in the cold. If you wanted one, you actually had to drive the thing. The chassis got just as much attention. The BiTurbo was fitted with a Boch & Sachs adaptive suspension system, a rarity in the early 90s and utterly unheard of on a French saloon. This wasn't some floaty, roll-happy barge. Reviews at the time praised its uncanny ability to combine supple ride comfort with flat cornering, essentially meaning it drove like a magic carpet that could also attack a twisty road with surprising composure. Inside the BiTurbo was everything you'd expect of a top-tier French executive car: leather spread across the seats, door guards, and dashboard. Electric everything was standard: windows, seats, mirrors, you name it. And in Baccarat trim, the flagship version, Renault threw the entire luxury kitchen sink added. This was the French idea of a super saloon, not brash like a Lotus Carlton, not clinical like an E34 540i, but indulgent and slightly eccentric. And the comparison with the Germans is important, as on paper, the BiTurbo couldn't quite match the raw pace of the BMW 540i or Audi's S4. At nearly 1,800 kilograms, it was a heavy brute, but the Germans didn't have the BiTurbo's sheer sense of character. Where their cars were clinical scalpels, the Renault was a velvet hammer, quieter, smoother, and more comfortable, yet still with a wicked punch when the turbos lit up. Renault could have gone further, of course. Hodge toyed with the idea of pushing the engine to 300 horsepower, which would have put it squarely into Porsche baiting territory, but Renault, wary of stressing drivetrains and warranty departments, capped it at the 256 horsepower limit. Which is a shame really, because at 300 horsepower, the BiTurbo might have been remembered today as France's answer to the M5. But instead, it sat awkwardly between categories. Too fast for an ordinary Renault, not fast enough to topple the Germans, and too expensive for most buyers to take it seriously. The result? Well, rarity. Between 1994 and 1996, only 806 examples of the Safrane BiTurbo were ever built. That makes it rarer than a Ferrari F40. Think about that. You are statistically more likely to stumble across an Italian supercar than you are a twin-turbo French executive car. Today, finding one for sale is about as likely as spotting a unicorn. And yet, for those who drive it, the BiTurbo was unforgettable. The combination of twin-turbo thrust, all-wheel drive grip, adaptive suspension, and Gaelic luxury made it a genuinely compelling alternative to the German norm. It was flawed, certainly. It wasn't the fastest, the lightest, or the most reliable, but it was different. And in the world of executive saloons, where everything tends to blur into the same thing, different is what makes a car worth remembering. The Safrane BiTurbo then is one of those oddities that only the French could have built. It was ambitious, technically fascinating, and executed with a mix of genius and folly that makes it utterly charming in hindsight. It never stood a chance of becoming a commercial success, but it didn't need to. It exists as a reminder that Renault, when it wanted to, could take on the Germans, not by copying them, but by doing things in a distinctly French way. And so, it sits today, nearly forgotten, overshadowed by hot hatches and Alpine sports cars. But for those in the know, the Safrane BiTurbo remains one of the greatest 90s gems ever to come out of France. But yeah, at the end of this video, please let me know what you guys think of this really rare Renault. Also, if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you guys did like it, you'll most probably enjoy most of my other stuff. So just go through my channel, see if there's someone else to like. I'll check you guys in the next one. Cheers, eh?